Hello! We are going to be talking about the 2.3 banners today. Because. Normally you would say because, and then you would explain the reason, but I don't really have a reason. I'm just doing it. But anyway, we're here, and we're going to talk about Firefly and Ruan Mei's banner, as well as the second phase banners, which are Jade and Argenti's banners. So we'll talk about both of them. We're talking about this one first because it's the phase 1 banners. I'm recording this at like 10:15 on Sunday night, so tomorrow is Monday, because that is what comes after Sunday, unless they change that on me. If they did, I did not get the memo, so that's really unfortunate. But when this goes up tomorrow morning, that'll mean we're basically a little over a day away from this patch actually going live, which means that basically, like, probably, 30 or so hours after this, well, probably like 36 hours or so after this video goes live, you'll be able to pull on this particular banner. So let's talk about it. We'll get the 4 stars out of the way first. I do think this is a pretty valuable banner as far as 4 stars go, because you've got basically the 3 newer 4-star units. I mean, especially Misha and Gallagher are super new. Like, they came out in Penacony. So you're probably not going to have 6 extra copies of these units. You probably don't have E6 already of all of them. If you pulled a bunch on the Acheron banner, you might have, like, an E6 Gallagher already, but you probably don't have E6 of all 3 of these, unless you're like a whale that's been pulling on every single banner since launch, right? I'm pretty sure I have E0 of all of these units. I might have E1 Jue, I think. Now, I'm pretty sure I have E1 Jue, but I know I have E0 Misha and E0 Gallagher. So that in itself is pretty cool, especially for like, hey, I want to get E6 of all the 4 stars at some point, you're a collector or whatever. But I actually also think that Gallagher is a really good pickup right now, because break is kind of the new thing, and he is specifically a break-focused sustain. And unlike most other 4-star units in the game, his particular niche, his particular role, is not filled by a premium 5-star. Like, Jue is a quantum and kind of pseudo-break DPS. There are quantum DPS units you can use, and there are now premium break units that you can use. Misha is an ice destruction character. There is literally a 5-star ice destruction character that was kind of the dominant force in the meta at a certain point, until Acheron came out. Everyone was like, yeah, Jinglu? More like Jinghu, am I right? Am I? I hope I am. I do like being right. Huh. Anyway, and on top of it, it doesn't even matter that Jinglu's ice. I mean, the thing is just, like, there are a bunch of DPS units in the game, basically. So if you're a DPS unit that's a 4-star, you're much more likely to be not as necessary, right? But there's no healer in the game or no shielder in the game that specifically buffs break damage, and that is super big because it gives Gallagher an actual niche that can't be filled by a 5-star unit. So I think that makes him a super important character. He's also really good for Firefly, who's on this banner. He's also really good for Boot Hill, who I have down here because there's just this black void below me, and I wanted something to be there, so Boot Hill's there. So say hi to Boot Hill. I don't know, he's a cool guy. So if you're building a Boot Hill team, you pulled him on this banner like I did, or if you're building a Firefly team, Gallagher, super good unit to have for that. Ruan Mei, super good unit to have for that, because she's just one of the units you could genuinely argue is the best unit in the game, because she's just really busted, especially for break teams. She's by far the best in-slot support unit you can have for Boot Hill, and aside from Harmony Trailblazer, who is free, I think she's definitely the best support you can get for Firefly as well. So if you have Boot Hill, you definitely want to pull Ruan Mei. If you're pulling Firefly, the problem there is you probably also want to pull Ruan Mei, unless you already have her, obviously, because the value you're going to get from having Ruan Mei is greater than the value you're going to get from having Firefly's Light Cone, or from having extra copies of Firefly. Like, if your options are Firefly's Light Cone, an extra copy of Firefly, or Ruan Mei, you pick Ruan Mei every single time, because she is so important to these break teams. You can make fully functional break teams without her, obviously. Like, I used Branya, Gallagher, and Harmony Trailblazer, and I killed Argenti in this MOC cycle, and then whatever. I used it to clear, I think it was Japard? Was it Japard in the last MOC? Anyway, I cleared MOC with the Boot Hill team, and my Boot Hill isn't even that well built, and all the supports are not super well built. It's kind of just thrown together. So you do not need her for a break team, but she's really good in break teams, even if you're not building break at all. I mean, she was considered one of the best units in the game before break was even viable. So she's really, really, really good in a wide variety of teams, and especially if you don't have Robin, who's the other big group buffer. You're definitely gonna want to pull Ruan Mei. She is. I know we talked about pull value not really being much of a thing on the last video I had, but this is the one instance I would say where that is not the case, because she has so much value on so many teams, and she's the most valuable rerun character in the game, probably. Until we get to the point where characters like, I think Aventurine is going to be really valuable on a rerun because he's the best sustain in the game, but he's not going to rerun for a while, Sparkle's not going to rerun for a while, Robin's not going to rerun for a while, and those are all also really, really good units. But Ruan Mei, super valuable, especially if you're building Firefly or Boot Hill, which does kind of mean that Firefly mains have to have a bit of a tough conversation, because, like I said, way more important to get Ruan Mei than getting Firefly's Light Cone or Firefly Constellations. Oh god, I'm letting Genshin Impact infect my brain again. Anyway, Eidolons. Eidolons is the term in this game. So Ruan Mei super valuable, who I'm personally pulling this patch, as long as I don't get screwed on my 50-50 again and have to use 180 pulls to get Ruan Mei, because then I'm not going to spend money, so I'm just going to cry and have like E2 Bailu or something at that point, which is just going to make me cry even more. I'll be in so much pain and suffering and loneliness. Anyway, I'm not okay. But anyway, Ruan Mei, super valuable. I highly recommend pulling her. Firefly, gonna be a really, really good DPS. I think she'll have a lot of staying power because they're gonna release more break-focused supports in the future, and she seems really, really good just with the units we have now. So both super valuable. I think Ruan Mei, best character to pull for general purposes, but Firefly, super good unit. I would definitely say pulling either of them, really good idea. Let's move on to the second banner here, because I think it's pretty important to actually talk about both banners. I've gone on for like 7 minutes, and I haven't even mentioned this banner yet, so let's talk about it. First off, you'll notice the 4 stars, not as valuable, I would say. In fact, I'm pretty sure all 3 of these units were free, because I think you were guaranteed to get Asta from your first pull. Natasha was free, and Serval was free. So you at least have one copy of these units. And the problem is I really don't think there's a lot of reason to use any of these units at this point. Natasha has just kind of been removed from existence because she was really good when the game launched, because she was like one of the only 2 healers in the game. And we not only have more healers now, we have like premium shielders as well. Well, premium sustains that aren't healers, because I guess Fujuan isn't really she's not really a shielder, she's like damage reduction. But you get what I mean. There's way better sustain options now. Asta, the problem with all the 4-star Harmony characters is that the 5-star Harmony characters are the most broken characters in the game, so all the 4-star Harmony characters just look bad by comparison. And Serval, I mean, she's a 4-star Lightning Air Edition character. So if you're one of those people that think Jing Yuan was power crit by Acheron, Serval's probably not in a good spot. You can use all 3 of these characters, though, and they can make your teams better. Asta still has good buffs. Natasha can still heal and cleanse, just not as good as the other 4-star free healer, because Lynx is kind of just better than Natasha. And Serval, you can use her as well if you want. They're totally fine units. And hey, the upside of the fact that you probably have E6 of at least a couple of these units is that every time you roll one, you're just going to get another free pull, because that's fun. But let's talk about the 5-stars, because that's what you're actually here for. Jade and Argenti. I would say Argenti is probably not one of the more valuable rerun characters. Not because he's not a cool guy. I think he's a really cool dude. He's a good unit, especially in Pure Fiction. But when it's a DPS rerunning as opposed to a really busted support, the problem you're going to run into is there's just more DPS units in the game. So there's more likelihood that you're not going to be, you know, as desirable your second time around. Not because of power creep necessarily, but more just because of option creep, I guess you could call it. There's just more options for AoE damage now than even when Argenti first released. So it is what it is, you know, unless you're one of the general, like, top tier DPS units that people really associate with just being busted. Like, I'm sure Acheron's rerun, for instance, is going to be really, really popular whenever it eventually happens in, like, 2.8 or something. But Argenti, he's still a really good unit, especially in Pure Fiction. Good AoE damage. You can use him in MOC as well. He's cool. I've beaten him up in, like, Simulated Universe not Swarm Disaster, the other one, Golden Gears, like, a million times, so I feel bad about that. But really cool guy, really cool unit. Very good for Pure Fiction. If you like him, definitely pull him. As for Jade, the actual new character in this phase of the banner, I don't think she'll be as popular as Firefly, because I think Firefly just has more of a fan base because she's been in the game longer, and we've just kind of been teased about Jade. This will be the first patch that she's really active in a lot. She's kind of just had a couple lines here and there. But she's gonna be really good, especially if you're building the IPC team, like with Aventurine and Topaz and people like that. I think she'll have really good synergy with them. She's gonna be another really good Pure Fiction unit. I mean, she's Quantum, so I'm sure there's somehow, some way you can make the most copium mono Quantum Jade team. I don't know how. I'm sure somebody will try it. I mean, it sounds fun, but it probably won't be good. She's really going to be good in follow-up teams, though. That's going to be kind of her thing. And if you're building follow-up teams, like you pulled Robin, you pulled Aventurine, you pulled Topaz, I'm sure that those 3, plus her, is probably her best team. And it's probably the best, it might be the best team for all 3, like all 4 of those units, is just them together, because she's going to be really, really busted as a follow-up attack unit specifically. So if you're invested in that kind of archetype of team, you're definitely going to want to pull Jade, or once again, like I say, if you just like the character, because that's kind of how it works. So that's kind of just the gist of it. I don't have a lot more to say, because I do also know less about Jade's kit than Firefly's, because I haven't looked as much into it. I know kind of the gist of it, but I don't know as many of the details as I do with Firefly's kit. I'll look more into that as we get closer to her actual phase in the banner, which will be in, you know, several weeks now, but we'll get there eventually. So my plans for this patch, kind of like I said earlier, pull Ruan Mei. There is no step 2. If I get like a super early Ruan Mei, I'd probably go for her Light Cone. And the thing is, I really want to pull Firefly at some point, but I'll have to wait for a rerun, I think, because even if I get her Light Cone, I would probably then really try to get E1, because her E1's also really busted. But in reality, I probably just need to save and skip a patch or 2, and then come back and try to, you know, get Firefly on a rerun. But that's my plans. You know, your plan's probably very different, because, you know, your account is probably less bricks than mine. Maybe I'll do like an account tour at some point, so you can see just how bad my account is. It's not that bad, actually. I've made it a lot better since I started playing again. But it is what it is. And that's my personal plans, but I guess I'll give you like an actual ranking as well, just so I can pretend I actually did something here. I think it's been a good video. I think we've had fun. But my rankings for the characters would be Ruan Mei is the best character here, the most valuable character here. Firefly's probably second, Jade's probably third, Argenti's probably fourth. That's just my opinion. Once again, if you're an Argenti main, Argenti fan, pull him. Like, you know, that's your deal, and he's going to be really good for your account, because he's a really good unit. It's just that Ruan Mei's the best, potentially the best unit in the game. I was going to say the best support for break teams, but she's kind of the best support for most teams, really. Jade's going to be a really good follow-up attack unit, so if you're building that archetype, she's going to be really good for your account. If you want to build a break DPS and you didn't build Boot Hill, then Firefly's going to be really good for your account. Or if you did pull Boot Hill, because, well, they do share a lot of the same best-in-slot supports, that's going to be less true as we get more break supports, but even right now, I'm sure you can make a break-focused team that uses, like, some of the best supports on one, some of the best supports on the other, and you could probably still clear both sides of MOC with that. So, really good unit. Very worthwhile pulling. All of them really worthwhile, but once again, my final rankings will probably be Ruan Mei's the most valuable, Firefly second, Jade third, Argenti fourth, and pull Ruan Mei because she's hot.